Richmond's Evergreen Cemetery, a visitor will find that many of the beautiful headstones are overgrown or damaged. However, the cemetery was not always in this state of neglect. At its inception in the year 1891, Evergreen Cemetery was intended to be the Richmond African American community's equivalent to Hollywood Cemetery, a peaceful hillside cemetery with a rolling, manicured landscape, perfect for visitors to escape life in the city and experience the peacefulness of nature. The rural cemetery movement in the mid-19th century provided a space for cemetery visitors to enjoy a middle landscape, a park-like atmosphere that served as a happy medium between the increasingly industrialized city and the dangers of the frontier. The middle landscape has the relaxing feel of being in nature while still in an environment that is carefully controlled by humans. During the rural cemetery movement, visitors to the rural cemetery enjoyed the middle landscape environment because they could get away from the noisy and crowded city and spend time in nature without actually having to venture into the untamed wilderness. The combination of the forces of nature and decades of human neglect have caused Evergreen Cemetery to become a dense, overgrown forest, and many of its beautiful headstones have been obscured by the overgrowth. The cemetery is no longer the middle landscape it once was. Though it still retains the serenity of the middle landscape by allowing the visitor to escape the urban environment, Evergreen Cemetery has transformed into a landscape on the other end of the spectrum, the wilderness. In the back of Evergreen Cemetery, where the overgrowth has not yet been cleared, a tree stump headstone sits deep in the woods. Unless you look very closely, you might miss it completely, as the treestone resembles the surrounding real trees and tree stumps from afar. Though much of the details of the stone have been worn away or broken off, the stone reveals that the deceased's name was Charles Thompson, and that he passed away on August 6th, perhaps in the year 1910 or 1920. There is no further information about the deceased, aside from the jaggedly cut top of the stump, which commonly represents an unexpected death. The lone letter A, along with the broken stone pieces on the ground below, suggest that there had once been more to the design. There remains one mushroom and fern leaf carved at the base of the stump. This lack of and loss of detailing makes Charles Thompson a bit of a mystery. The stone does not feature any of the symbolism that would be present if the deceased had been a member of the Woodmen of the World, a fraternal organization that popularized the tree trunk headstone at the turn of the century by providing its members with their own tree stones. His stone also lacks the intricate details and manicured surroundings of the tree stones of elite white families during the time period. For example, in comparison with the tree stones of the Lloyd family in Hollywood Cemetery, Thompson's stone is far less ornate. The family's headstones feature intricate detailing, including flowers, vines, and fruit. Thompson's stone, in contrast, is much more simple, yet retains a more realistic look than the Lloyd tree stones. This lack of decoration, set against the forest environment in which it sits, has caused the Thompson stone to look even more like a real tree within this woodland landscape. The combination of overgrowth and the wearing away of details have contributed to the stone having an increasingly naturalistic look. Charles Thompson's stone represents a life cut short by death, but the forces of nature and systems of racial inequality have obscured the memorialization of this loss. While the tree stones in Hollywood Cemetery stand out in the well-controlled environment, the Thompson tree stone now blends in with the surrounding environment and has become a part of the forest landscape. With the change in the surrounding landscape, his stone now indicates a loss of control over death. For the Thompson stone, death has again become a deep, less controlled mystery, much like the wilderness that 19th century Americans feared. Because of this, Charles Thompson's tree stone actually serves as a more authentic representation of what tree stones are intended to symbolize, a life unexpectedly cut short by forces outside of itself. As efforts to restore Evergreen Cemetery continue, hopefully more gravestones like Charles Thompson's will be uncovered and made more easily accessible for visitors to contemplate and admire within a nature landscape.